स्टार्ट हो गया पंखा ये चलने दो आवाज़ करेगा बहुत
Start करें. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Back to the 51st feature of IndieCast. Today, we are going to be talking about something all of us Indians became an expert at around Operation Sindoor, which is drone warfare, surface to surface missiles, surface to air missiles, and basically uh, the kind of conflicts which are beyond visual range. So we all heard these terminologies, and now dramatic escalations are being observed in West Asia, with the conflict between Israel and Iran heightening and escalating as we are going forward. I don't think there are any signs of de-escalation right now, although no matter what diplomatic language people might use around the world, the conflict is it's speeding up fast. So I guess that de-escalation is not in sight right now. Started with some strikes conducted on Iranian nuclear assets, Iranian nuclear scientists, and top Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps officers of the state of Iran, which in my view is a major escalation by Israel also. But then people who might argue otherwise will say that the development of nuclear assets in itself is an escalation. So those discussions we will get into later. Jay, let's get your opening thoughts.
yeah it's a war that was waiting to happen and the I think the ball was set in motion on the 7th of October itself with the attacks conducted by Hamas. Something which was allegedly and also with a lot of evidence directed and coordinated by the regime in Tehran through other proxies like Hezbollah. And what it does is that it clearly uh, sets a pattern with respect to where the Middle East is heading in the future. And the reason why I say that is because the Abraham Accords were signed, which was something which was uh, looked over by Donald Trump personally, and he considered it to be one of his major diplomatic victories. And Abraham Accord was actually a lot of major Sunni Arab powers acknowledging the existence of Israel, and that somehow left a power vacuum in the Middle Eastern Islamic world, where the Arabs, specifically the Sunni Arabs, were viewed with a lot of scrutiny in the Muslim world. Specifically, countries like UAE, and they would almost gotten Saudi Arabia also on board. And what it did was that it ensured that countries like Turkey and Iran start to have a lot more say in the with respect to global Islamic politics. And you had Turkey's support to Azerbaijan and its massive victories, be it its support to the cause in Libya or its operations in northern Iraq, and then establishing main bases all over northern Iraq and certain places of Syria in order to put pressure on the Kurdish rebels. So essentially, what we're seeing was that a power vacuum was created after the Abraham Accords, and to fill in that power vacuum, we had two major entities coming in. One was Iran, one was Turkey. Turkey did it very successfully because it was able to achieve most of its military goals, and I think Iran was also quite successful in posing or posturing as this new dominant player in global Islamic politics. The reason why Iran is a little more threatening for the Arabs is because, of course, Iran is Shia. Iran is not Sunni, and of course, Iran is blatantly against the monarchies of these other Arab states, and that is what led to the first Iran-Iraq war. And now we're seeing Israelis and the Iranians come at each other with full force, and this is where it gets even more interesting because a lot of people in the Middle East were thinking that the Palestinians and their cause has been totally forgotten. And in order to remind the world, the Iranians planned the October 7th attack, and it got a vicious response from the Israelis, which I feel to a very large extent Israel was justified in going against Hamas. I mean, of course, not against so many civilian targets. That's not justified at all. But against the actions against
Yeah,
Hamas
I
was
mean,
totally
I'll
justified.
push
So
back here only that maybe the actions against Hamas were justified in the initial ground invasions
yes,
by the IDF,
yeah.
but then the humanitarian toll that it started taking in
Absolutely.
Gaza was unjustifiable completely.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are satellite imagery basically showing every nook and corner of Gaza, basically
Satellite images, drone images
drone
also,
images.
very medium range images also
I mean,
showing.
and ground reports also. It's like if you look at what Gaza used to be and what it has been turned into, there even many political forces within Israel will not support the humanitarian toll that it has taken. It has completely been flattened, and I think Netanyahu and his party have basically stopped or numbed themselves from any kind of criticism. So I think they don't even understand the idea of a basic pause anymore.
Yes.
And this is coming from somebody who has had a somewhat of a two-state solution kind of thing in mind. So I'm somebody who will very much identify Israel's right to sort of defend itself or exist. But
Because of the
despite that,
Pakistanis, of
yeah.
course.
But I mean, despite that, I feel like the humanitarian toll is completely unjustifiable.
Of course, I wasn't
And
talking about that. That's
yeah,
why I said that it's very important to understand that Israel was totally justified in its actions against Hamas, later on against Hezbollah, and then of course it just went out of hand, and they started to refocus their attention to mostly non-military targets, where they always accuse the people, the militants, of hiding under non-military targets. But if you analyze, most of India's military installations or any other country's military installations are in heavily populated areas, so you
yeah,
cannot justify your actions against such areas and say that, oh, listen, the militants were here, that's why we had to bomb this area.
yeah.
So again, it's a double-edged sword, and eventually this the dismantling of Hezbollah, the fall of the Assad regime, and and other actions against the Houthi militants down south in the Arabian Peninsula has led to this final confrontation that's happening between the two parties. I would say that this is the boss fight that the Israeli war machine is facing, because this is the final boss, and
Yeah.
and yeah, it's come to massive military escalation, which is beyond vision or
Yeah.
view,
Beyond visual range.
beyond visual
Yeah.
range.
I
So yeah,
just
Raj,
yeah.
let's take over.
I just want to say that there's many sides to this. Like so, when the Abraham Accords happened, clearly the Arab nations formed a natural relationship with Israel, which opened up a window that Iran had been looking for to sort of project itself as the leader of the Islamic world, especially in the struggle of the Palestinian people against the Israelis. And I feel like one more thing that sort of worked in their favor was the strikes that maybe Israel had been conducting, not so overtly, but Mossad and its agencies have been targeting nuclear scientists of Iran, maybe say since the early 2020s, and so maybe
Even
2022,
before that.
even yeah, even before that actually. And there were more instances which were causing Iran's frustration against the West. There were the economic sanctions, and there was the assassination of the commander of the IRGC, General Qasem Soleimani, in early 2020. And I feel like these things were building up for Iran to maybe strike against West and as a result Israel. So this is not the reason, but it could also have been a contributory factor in the backing of Hamas by Iran, which led to the October 7th, 2023 mayhem, which led to the loss of so many innocent lives. Fortunately for Iran, what it also had was an arsenal of a lot of proxies that it could use. It had the Houthis, it had the Hezbollah, which has now been significantly weakened after strikes by Israelis, but it used to be a major force multiplier for the Iranians once upon a time. And it also positioned some of its proxies on Syrian territories. So you almost, it's what was called the crescent around Israel. So the Iranians obviously had a capability to provide both qualitative and quantitative damage to Israeli and Western military assets in that region. And I feel like the the conflict post October 7th, 2023, has had a lot of strikes on, say, Houthis, on Hezbollah, and there has been a regime change in Syria. Now Assad's government is out, and HTS is in Syria now. So there's been a shifting dynamic even in West Asia. As a result, I think Iran is also feeling a loss of capability in its ability to dominate what was once called the axis of
Resistance.
resistance or axis of evil, based on what your ideology is.
Axis of evil included North Korea as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll check that.
Yeah. Axis of
Yeah.
evil was a term that was used by George W. Bush,
Right.
and it included North Korea as
Right.
well.
Right. So then this is like a basic history, a basic overview, and I think these are just the overall narrative in the background of which Israel has conducted these strikes. Now, Israel did definitely strike with very precision guided weapons in Tehran and other areas where they did eliminate top nuclear scientists and top IRGC officials. But what Israel is facing back is also unprecedented, because there was a certain kind of overconfidence, I would say, not just by the Israelis but by the international community on the Iron Dome defense systems. And we have all been seeing visuals of how Iranian missile systems, which by the way were developed domestically, mainly by Iran because it has so many economic sanctions, and all these weapon systems have delivered. Many of them have struck inside Tel Aviv. Naturally, the Israeli defense systems are still fairly good, so maybe 70-80% get intercepted, but the 20% that are hitting Israeli territories are causing major damage. About 300 to 400 people have been grievously injured in the strikes.
14
About
are confirmed dead.
14 are at
The
least
death is
confirmed
gonna go
dead.
up.
Yeah.
The
And
deaths.
the death toll, even 14 for a small country like Israel, is fairly heavy. So I feel like, despite the strikes, Netanyahu needs to evaluate whether he's actually done a service to his people, because the war has now been brought to the streets of Tel Aviv. Naturally, the retaliatory strikes by Israel have hit fuel depots outside of Tehran, which has caused massive fires also. So there's just a blows exchanging going on between these two countries. Military assets and civilian assets for sure are being damaged on both sides. And I feel like if the Western Bloc is serious about ca- carrying out peaceful activities in the world, as Donald Trump very arrogantly said to India, then he must bring peace in West Asia if he is such a good deal maker. Jay, back to you.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if you go by what the Americans and a lot of other people were saying to India, specifically during our our confrontation with the Pakistanis, it was mostly towards de-escalation and how two nuclear power nations should not be going against each other. Here you have Israel, your puppet state, literally going after nuclear facilities of another country, and you're totally okay with it. But if one of our missiles allegedly went and struck the Kirana Hills, the Americans just panic and the Western world just panics, because I feel Israel and Pakistan are both American puppet states, and they're both used in their respective regions to, you know, enforce the geopolitical goals of the Western world, specifically the Americans and the British, the Anglosphere, to say the least, the Five Eyes. So I mean, this is my opinion. I might be wrong, but this is what I personally feel.
No, Jay, you're absolutely right. I mean, look at it like this. When hypothetically, okay, I'll be careful of comparing what we were doing here around Op Sindoor with what's going on in West Asia. But let's just draw two parallels and the difference in the Western view on the conflict. India struck terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan and allegedly struck a nuclear facility in Sargodha district, and that has not been confirmed. The latter part of what I said. Obviously, we did damage terror infrastructure in Pakistan. Now, these two things were seen as such a major escalation by the international community, and you had tweets, communications, and official statements urging peace, urging de escalation. Here, Israel has started by first striking nuclear facilities in Iran. Israel has hit Iranian military officials and Iranian civilian scientists who may be involved in uranium enrichment and those kind of things. But the nature is so much more disproportionately escalatory over here. Yet there is no condemnation. There is no will to stop these fights. There is no will to make Israel de-escalate. In fact, right now the latest is that maybe more NATO powers like the UK might be sending some of their jets in that area to sort of back the Israeli air force, because I think that the entire Western defense apparatus is a little shaken by the fact that missiles did fall on Tel Aviv, and that is a major, I think, embarrassment for the view that Israel's overall aerial defense systems were unbreakable. It in fact is not an Iron Dome. I don't want Israel to suffer. I just think that if we are serious about de-escalation, then the West needs to bring a stronger hold on the Israelis, and there needs to be peace between Israel and Iran, and humanitarian aid must start flowing into Gaza before any kind of conversations can happen. Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. And to conclude my thoughts and my opinions, I would say that I feel that they would try to definitely try to go for a regime change, because the Iranian regime is also not a regime which believes in, like, stability and a lot of positive things. Let's not mince our words. It's a despotic, theocratic Islamic regime which
Absolutely.
believes in Shia supremacy, and because of that, it causes a lot of political turmoil, and it has also a lot of times been in been in open support of Pakistan in certain of Pakistan's, like, foreign
Yeah.
policy goals. Sometimes, not always.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
my condemnation of Israel is by no means a
Exactly,
a
it's a
backing of
backing of
Iran.
the Iranians, because
Yeah.
Iranians are also not the Iranian regime. Let's be clear: the
Yeah.
Iranian regime is not the most innocent of the lot,
For sure.
and yeah, I think what they would try to do, what the Americans and the Israelis would try to do, is that they would try to completely denuclearize Iran. Number one, number two. Right now that they have achieved air superiority, according to Israeli claims, they will try to enforce a regime change as well, and they would try to establish a more pro-Western government in Iran. But that would, in my opinion, and this brings me to the third point, that would lead to absolute chaos, anarchy, and eventual disintegration of Iran in its different ethnic states. Because let's not forget, Iranians are not just Iranians. There are a lot of different ethnic groups in Iran, and the second biggest ethnic group in Iran, specifically towards the northwestern sides, are the Azeris. So interestingly, even though Azeris are Shia Muslims, Iran has never been too supportive of the Azerbaijani government, even in its actions against the Armenians, because that would, in you know, inadvertently lead to a separatist movement in northwestern Iran as well. It's kind of like, I mean, not a very good analogy. But it's kind of similar to how Indians also started withdrawing their support from LTT later on, because they started thinking that, hey, we have such a big state called Tamil Nadu. I mean, who knows? Eventually, they would also start indulging in such actions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, these are my concluding thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, over the last 3 years, we know the degree of tensions that have existed between Israel and Iran, and they've been on a kind of shadow war for sure. But I think that when it goes into open military conflict, we need to start evaluating the seriousness of the West in ensuring peace in Middle East or West Asia. See, I mean, I think that this is the first time that the two nations have openly exchanged so many direct kinetic strikes on each other. This is a major shift in what earlier used to be a proxy war by Iran against Israeli military assets. So we need to see like the wider regional implications of this. We know that there has been a regime change in Syria. We know that now Arab nations are more proximate to Israel and the West, and we know that Iran will also keep positioning itself as a sort of quote unquote leader of the Muslim world right now. So we need to apply these dynamics and find a delicate piece right now, because if we don't, then the situation is likely to keep escalating. We need to see that if there has been if there has been a regime change in Syria, what pressures it can exert on Israel, what pressures it can exert on Iran, for example. We need to see what roles that the Arab countries can play in mediating peace. We need to see whether the issues around humanitarian aid around Gaza can be worked around, and only then can, you know, more talks about de-escalation happen, because right now open kinetic military strikes are happening between Israel and Iran, but I would say Israel and Iran have been in conflict for the last 5 6 years. So let's just have a serious examination of where the situation is likely to go. Right now, I can't say when it's going to escalate, de-escalate, or escalate further. From what I understand, the gloves are very much off, and the conflict seems to be escalating at the moment. But yeah, I mean, all I can say from here is that I hope that civilians on both sides are safe. And yeah, I think we have had more conversations around Iranian military tech and Israeli military tech on our episode about drone warfare, which was our last to last episode, I think. And I didn't know that it would become relevant so quickly, but we will attach a link to that also, so that we can both understand the history of maybe defense manufacturing in Israel and in Iran, who have both followed a very different trajectory of developing their own weapon systems, but both have clearly very effective weapons, the performance of which we are seeing in real time as time passes. So I think that will be the end of the conversation. Jay,
Thank you so much, guys.
thank you for joining us.
अभी अपलोड कर दे
कर दे कुछ, हाँ कुछ ऐसे एडिट तो नहीं करना है.